Do 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 do. And so begins the beginning.
Is that what we're going with? So begins the beginning.
Thus, the beginning begins. Yeah, it's ThursdAGE, and this is our little warm up. A little waiting for people to get comfortable. Remember that the program's starting. And I also wanted to get in before any more thunder and lightning went on.
Oh yeah.
Owen is in the midst of a thunderstorm.
It's a severe thunderstorm. It's Oklahoma. The National Severe Weather Labs is here for a reason.
Yeah. Do you have tornadoes there?
So, I mean, yes. I think Oklahoma has more tornadoes per square foot than any other place in the country.
They're just hanging around? Why do people do that?
Well, because we won't be hit by the lava lahar when one of the volcanoes goes off.
Smart.
There's no safe place, Troy.
True. Very true.
And my hometown here of Norman is famously much less likely to get tornadoes.
I see.
And we don't know why.
Are we sure we don't know why?
We are sure we don't know why.
I think it's a curse, an ancient curse. Hey, folks, welcome to ThursdAGE. Glad that you are here. We are about ready to get started. Right now, we're just hanging out. We're talking about thunder and lightning storms and the fact that Owen stockpiles tornadoes just for the fun of it, as you would imagine. Thank you to...
It's really.
What was that?
You do tornadoes for the art, right? No one does tornadoes for the science. It's
or the love. Yeah. You got to love the art. Robert says you could move to Oregon. We've had a tornado before, and you'd feel fine. Yeah. Aww. I like that people are looking to make places like Oregon comfy with some natural disasters just for you.
So, of course, tornadoes in Seattle are rare, but when I drove out there in 2014 from Oklahoma, there were like 2 tornadoes within 6 months. And people
in Seattle?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tornado, ThursdAGE is a tornado of content. Right? How do you like that segue?
It's not bad. We've done worse.
We have certainly done worse. But I want to welcome everybody to the fun today. My name is Troy. I'm the disembodied guy that gets to hang out with Owen every ThursdAGE, and we sit and we talk age stuff. It's not just fantasy age, but Owen happens to be the boss of the fantasy age setting, and so and also just willing to deal with my daily shenanigans, and I appreciate that.
No, I'm only willing to deal with your weekly shenanigans.
Oh, that's true. That is true. Not daily. Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
Daily would be a bit much on the shenanigan department.
Asking a little too much, but I would enjoy it. And today, what I'm really excited about as far as this program goes is we're done. We're done with rules. We're finished. All the rules are broken. We get to do everything we want. Now, Owen, I've already started planning a heist.
Oh, good.
I figure we could do a heist. I don't know what we will heist yet, and so I'm thinking that we could get some thoughts from chat, and they can let us know, how we can, what should we heist, and then I have another question. This is just me personally. This is my own personal quest I've incorporated from the beginning a little guy, a little person, I'll say, playing the horn or playing a horn. I guess it's just a horn. It's not really any kind of special horn. A ThursdAGE horn, sort of signaling to the world that it is time to pay attention. And you will notice
calls for aid.
That's right. ThursdAGE calls for aid. If you look on our little, you see him right there. It's playing. See that person as it playing, and that particular time, I guess Biff came out. I don't really know. It's maybe not the best horn, but yeah. I mean, I want to name that little friend. maybe pull them into some sort of a mascot kind of position. Boy, we've got everybody talking a lot about these tornadoes.
Well, I mean, tornadoes are interesting and strange and terrifying to people that aren't used to them.
Yeah,
and they starred
absolutely.
in their own movie, so
That's right. Yeah, that was
now
tornadoes. You don't hear me?
Oh no. Why don't I hear Troy?
You should hear
I don't hear anything.
me. Hi. Owen might be having some audio issues. Can y'all hear me in chat? Oh, no. Owen's been stricken by probably one of those tornadoes he was talking about, has thrown a cow into his living room or
No, I'm good.
something. Oh, good.
fine.
There you are. Okay, great. Phew. I was really worried because I would have to do the program by myself. That would mean I have to talk nonstop for a whole hour.
I really, that seems right in your wheelhouse, Troy.
It really does, actually. When I said it, I was kind of like, let's see here. David Hubbard is talking about, the pay is crap, so only those dedicated to tornado craft to do it for the love. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there is an entire career of people who are tornado chasers, many of whom make more money selling their videos to news organizations than they do getting paid by universities or government study groups.
Yeah, I mean, as evidenced by the chat alone, tornadoes are a fascinating subject. Best use for tornadoes are sheet metal gliders. Set them on the lawn, glare at the neighbors. That is pretty. That's a menacing thing to do.
I do remember when I was young at one point flying a kite because it was great kite flying later, and then the tornado sirens went off, and I thought, but the kite's doing really well.
How long did you stick around before you decided that maybe it was the time to go into the cellar?
Until the rain hit, because it turns out rain and kites don't do well.
Well, yeah, then rain and high winds is kind of like just people slapping you repeatedly.
It can be, yeah.
All right. Well, so hello and good ThursdAGE unto you, Michael McNeil. Hello to everybody else as well. And today, we're talking about breaking the rules. Owen brought it up, and I was like, finally, we can just release ourselves from the obligation of rules. We can it's going to be chaos.
Someone on Twitter, a game designer, recently said, and it may have been Steve Kenson, spare me from people who feel like if you're not following all the rules of a role-playing game, you're suddenly just doing play pretend.
Right.
As if somehow the fact that we've decided that there's a die that tells us what the chances are we successfully lob a fireball into the enemy army means we're not playing pretend.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's strong.
I think most people role play without rules before they role play, right? Running around playing cops and robbers or Hatfields and McCoys or whatever your local run around and yell shot you did not did to game is. I don't know what they all are. Sometimes I doubt your commitment to kite motion, Owen. Yeah. Well, I broke the rules of kite motion, so there you go. It's on theme.
Well, that's an interesting thing because we are, tongue in cheek. We're not talking about don't go out and pay your taxes. Put on a mask. Follow those rules.
So, I am not here to be the person to tell you when it is and is not appropriate to engage in social disobedience. Right? There's a time for protesting and striking and trying to leverage group action. But we are trying to restrict ourselves, not because we are beholden to the man, but because we are not the authority to talk about when it's a good idea to decide that maybe civil law or even
civil disobedience.
We are game designers and disembodied podcasters, so we're going to stick to the game. We're going to pretend it's because we're not qualified for anything else, but really it's because we figure that's what you came here to listen to us talk to.
Right.
If we thought you were here to listen to us talk about civil disobedience, we'd get into that topic, but we assume that you're not.
And I think just in a pinch, if you're wondering what rules should I follow, here's some good ones. Don't don't hug wild grizzlies, stay out of tornadoes. Unregistered ice cream trucks might be dangerous. That's fair.
I've
Yeah.
never checked an ice cream truck's registry, right? If he shows up and he's got the music and there's ice cream,
You presume.
I assume that's legit. I don't even know how I would check an ice cream truck. There's probably a little sticker somewhere that says what, and there's a hole punch for what month and year their freezer was last checked for severed heads.
No. I mean, just by the law of summertime childhood, you don't need a license. You just need a really bad song and a questionably road safe vehicle with a cooler and some ice cream. Yeah,
Surely they're road safe, right? I mean, they wouldn't do non-road safe ice cream trucks, would they?
I do certainly question it. Questionable at the very least. Owen looks like he's stricken in place.
Here.
You're there. Okay, yeah. You are frozen. You're giving me that look of like, what are you talking about, Troy Hewitt?
Well, being frozen is another possible threat for severe weather. So
yeah, I've not watched Frozen, the program, but I do know some of the musical. Maybe we could do like a ThursdAGE musical.
We could, but I think we're actually going to take time to think about not could we do a thing, but should we do a thing?
Should we? Yeah. Okay. I like it. And so let's dive into it. I do like the heist suggestions. Do keep them coming in, but let's get on topic.
So there are a couple of times where you can, if not break the rules, at the very least ignore the rules. And those are two slightly different things, so I want to address them differently. You can ignore the rules anytime they're not necessary as a starter. So I'm going to give an example of that. Obviously, in the age system, we use tests to determine whether or not you can succeed at a thing. So you throw 3 dice, you add your various bonuses, those being attributes and focuses, and if you hit the test number, you've succeeded. Now, if a player says, I want to step over the crack in the sidewalk that I think is actually cursed and will break my mother's back, if it is in fact an entirely mundane crack and there's nothing weird going on and the player's just being paranoid because he made a good perception test and you told him that the sidewalk was cracked, you don't have to roll for that. All you have to do is say, okay, that there's no reasonable chance you will fail that. So I'm going to ignore the rules. I'm not even going to look up what an easy is, right? Chances are that if you rolled a 3 and we added your 0, I would still consider that to be good enough to step over the crack. So we're not breaking a rule. We're just ignoring the rule by saying, fine, you step over the crack, not a problem. On you move, nothing to worry about. Now, you don't have to do that, right? You can say, okay, make a willpower check. And then the player has to wonder, oh my God, what was the target number to be able to successfully summon up my willpower to step over the crack? And it turns out the target number was 1, right? So unless they had a -3 or worse, they were going to succeed. So that's one extreme. If things are so easy that there is no point in testing to see if they fail. And the advantage of doing that, the advantage of ignoring the rules then, is it doesn't slow things down, right? There's fun or drama or tension to be added by, can I wake up in the morning? Can I put on my pants? Can I find my glasses? And in fact, if we rolled for everything, even if we had low values that people had to roll terribly in order to fail, periodically people would fail. And you don't want to turn your game into a Keystone comedy of errors accidentally. Now, you might want to do that on purpose, in which case, yeah, sure, roll for everything, have fumble checks, whatever. But
if you're like me, sometimes your life is just that, and it's nice to not have to do that.
Yeah, well, and that another nice things about not making people roll all the time is you can then have the tool as a game master of indicating that something is harder than people thought by forcing them to roll, even if it's easy, right? Like if someone wakes up and you say, okay, the world's kind of spinning, you think you might have had too much mead last night, things are sort of tipping back and forth, you're not sure what anyone is, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to get up and look around the room, and you're like, great, make a dexterity check to see if you can stand, because that's how much the floor seems to be pitching and rolling. And then the player has this piece of information. Oh, this is actually relevant. This could, have I been kidnapped? Am I on a ship? Am I in the middle of an earthquake? I have woken up in the middle of an earthquake, and it's confusing.
Mhm.
And I could easily see a game master telling me if I'd been playing a character stuck in that circumstance. Everything seems to be shaking and pitching, and you're not sure what's going on. Currently frozen. That's my title now. Great. I am the treat in the ice cream man's truck now. I am the
Oh,
frozen head.
see? Wow, this is all coming together. I really like it.
Uh, so that is one extreme. Another is if what they want to do is impossible, there's no chance of success. You're not saying it's unlikely. You're not saying that if you happen to make that 216 roll of 3d6, I'll allow it. You, as the game master, saying that is not a thing that can be done. So if someone says, I want to, instead of jump over a crack in the sidewalk, I want to take a running jump and leap over the moon. I'm aware that the moon is a celestial body. It's hundreds of thousands of miles away, millions of miles, whatever. I want to jump over it and land safely on this side. You don't, as the game master, have to say, fine, roll some dice. Did you roll a 904? No, then you didn't make it. You can just say, you fail. You don't make it. I'm not checking the rules. I'm not looking it up. I don't care if you think there's some number that would allow you to get the 238,000 miles between here and the moon. It's not happening. What do you want to do when you fall on your face and fail?
Gotcha. So we've gone from mundane crack to the moon.
Yeah.
That's a good spectrum. It's kind of a good measurement tool. And that's more about economy and timing and all of that kind of stuff. Are there other aspects of that are mechanical like that, or that deal with sort of the exchange or the transaction of here I am, I'm attempting to do a thing, and I mean all the fun stuff and the crunchy bits seems to happen between the crack and the moon. What are some other considerations?
I mean, that's a game master call on what we have very intentionally hit the too far extremes to make our point clear, right?
Yeah.
There are people who have thought they could jump the Grand Canyon on a rocket motorcycle, and they have not succeeded ever. But if I was playing in a modern age game and someone wanted to do that, and they were like, okay, I get this modifier for the rocket, this modifier for the ramp, and this modifier because I secretly have a wizard who's helping me. Even if I knew that if they rolled a perfect number, they're going to fall short, I'd probably have them roll for the drama of the moment, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to say you never, ever want to make checks, even if the end result is a given. That's a GM call, and it can have to do with pacing. But it can also have to do with letting people know, if they have fallen short of their modifiers, so they can't quite make it. But if they roll really well, they'll make it 5/6 of the way across the Grand Canyon. That gives them a sense of scale of what is possible. So it can be useful in that regard. And these are just checks. There are other examples. Famously in Knights of the Dinner Table, someone's character fell into lava and he asked if he got a saving throw because he was wearing his +1 leather armor. There are some things that are just so overwhelming that if that happens, your character is dead, or your character falls asleep, or, whatever. And you don't want to railroad people's decisions or take away the chance of game being fun, but you do also want to enforce, hey, there are certain realities I'm sticking with, and if you fall off of the crevasse into the pit of lava, I've carefully set the game up so that's not likely. You had lots of opportunities to avoid it. You chose to swan dive off one end. Your character's dead, dude. You have
You've done it.
Yeah, that's as far as it's going to go, and you don't get anything more than that. So
you're like, I said good day, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's lava. And again, those are less about breaking the rules than ignoring them. Another time you can ignore the rules is when you have an idea of how it should work, and you don't know if the rules covered or not, and you don't care. You just want to get on with the story, right? Like someone says, hey, I want to impress the kids by picking up a rock and skipping it across the lake. And you're like, okay, so that's a thing that definitely could happen. We're not saying that's not an option. And you could succeed and you could fail. And it kind of matters because the kids may or may not be impressed. They may or may not be helpful to you. Now, you could go diving through the Fantasy Age rulebook, the basic rulebook, or the companion, and desperately trying to find, are there specific examples that tell me what ability score I use to skip rocks, and what possible DC is it? You could absolutely do that if you want to. But that could be a lot of digging around. And in the end, all that matters for the story is, did I successfully skip a rock or not? So you can say, hey, that sounds like physical precision and finesse with ranged weapons. So make an accuracy test. And I've just set a number. I've decided that it is going to be an 11. So if you get an 11, you skip it across. It might turn out that if you go digging through everything, that should have been a dexterity check. So that's more about eye-hand coordination, or maybe that should have been an intelligence check. Are you capable of figuring out exactly how to skip the rock over? Or maybe it should have been a communication check because you're trying to impress the kids. So the real question is, are they impressed? Not how far did the rock go? But that level of detail, the vast majority of the time, if someone just wants to skip a rock, does not matter, and you don't want to slow a game down for 20 minutes, and you're the game master. So you just pick something that's reasonable. The age system is very specifically designed so that we don't have to worry about getting a +1 bonus for having higher ground and +1 for having picked up a smooth rock. And we're going to check and see what the water conditions are. And so if the wind is 15 to 20 miles an hour, they're choppy, and that includes the test number. None of that is in the game for a reason. What we do instead is tell you, hey, here are the average target numbers for these ability tests. Pick one that matches the situation as you understand it. Do your best to describe that situation to the players so they have the same feel for it. Make a test and roll. And further, especially in this game, if you're going to say that was challenging, okay, you're trying to throw something all the way across a lake. That's not average. That's impressive. It's more than average. It's challenging. Target number 13, and then they succeed, and they get a stunt point. You can be like, hey, do you want it to, you got a stunt point. It doesn't matter if you make 2 attacks this round. I'm going to, as the game master, make up a rule, and again, ignoring what's already in the game, and say, hey, do you want it to pop all the way across and then pop up on shore and hit a rock 15, or a treetop 15 feet onto shore, so it's even more impressive? And the player can say yes or no. Yeah, I want to burn my stunt point like that. These are all cases where you don't want an encyclopedia or an instruction manual to be the thing that slows down the game. This is not engine repair, right? If you put the wrong belt in the wrong place, if you pour the wrong liquid into the wrong hose, you're not going to destroy your ability to make it around town and look for the ice cream man. If a mistake happens, the worst that happens is that people have less fun, or there are bad feelings about it. And if you're all adults and have conversations about these things after the game or between games or before the next game, then that can be avoided, right? If you said it's a communications check and someone goes with it and later they go, I really wanted that to be a dexterity check because I'm great at dexterity and I'm bad at communications, and I thought this was a clever way to impress the kids without being good at it, then you can tell them, either, well, the very fact that you're bad at communication means that even if you skipped it across, the kids wouldn't be impressed. That's how the game works. Or you could say, hey, that's a really good point. That could have impressed the kids. I'm sorry. I'll think about that in the future. And if there is some specific ability that you want to use to test things up, let us know, right? And with that, you avoid turning these rule books into things that slow the game down and stop the fun, right? We're really wanting people to just be able to have fun. That is the objective here.
And so, I think it too is kind of a mark of a evolved participation in, if you're running a game and you can suspend for a moment because you know exactly where these things can go. You've got it mapped out. There's a comfort in being able to do some shorthand and kind of let things, let the rules handle themselves. When are things? Oops, did I lose you, Owen? We've lost him. Nope, here he's back.
I
There
have a
you
crown
are.
now, in fact.
You do. And our little friend is saying, Biff. I do not know yet what his name is, but their name is, I don't even know. Let us know, friends. You're making the decision. But yeah, so you're back. What I was asking you is, as a mark of evolution of your skill as a game master, if you can predict these things, the outcomes are the risk is relatively small. If you just make the quick call, are there other ways or other times when you should be suspending the rules and it may not be as obvious as all that?
Yeah, there absolutely are. And some of this is going to get into judgment calls. And if I'm going to have a crown, I really want to. Okay,
Oh yeah,
that's done now. If it's there, I want to. Okay, where
you
do
look you look like you were pained to get that crown on right, so I will relieve you of the duty.
So, for example, if the rules are enforcing a reality that you have ethical problems with, and I'm going to pull up examples here that are not fantasy age or age system specific because we do our best not to put in rules that will enforce unethical results. But I just want to give some examples. If you're looking at the game and the game says, hey, if the character has lost any part of their anatomy, they are considered unwhole and cannot use divine magic. And you think to yourself, well, we're saying that rule says that if you've suffered an accident, you're not a real person and the gods won't listen to you. And that's bullshit. And you might decide that's bullshit because you yourself lost a pinky in the war, or you might decide it's bullshit because a friend of yours is missing something, or you might just be the sort of person that thinks about these things and just doesn't want to enforce rules that are saying bad things that are making people feel bad,
causing a harm. Yeah.
So I don't want to go too deep into this, and again, someday we may want to get a real expert on here, but rules can cause harm. What you say to a group, what you enforce, what you normalize can either help people feel welcome and represented and make it easier for them to have fun, or make them feel like, oh, this game isn't really for me. This game is very specifically set up for other people. It is saying things I don't want to hear be said constantly, and as a result, I'm not interested in playing it. So I think
people are here to enjoy themselves. I mean, this is a game. These are entertainment activities.
Yes, although it's worth remembering there are people who enjoy being assholes, and I know I try and avoid language on this show for the most part, but I think
this one's important. Yeah.
If someone, there are griefers and there are trolls and there are crank callers and there are people that knock on your door and run away because they've left a flaming bag of poo there.
Oh, did you get my delivery?
It's a very special DoorDash.
Yeah.
There are people, porch poo. It's a service. You pay for it, and they'll light a bag of poo on someone else's porch.
Yeah.
Presumably, you can have it delivered to your own porch, but
that's weird.
So there are people that enjoy making other people sad or hurt, or just proving that they can get away with things that are dumb or mean. And those people play role-playing games sometimes. And just because the rules say, hey, my friend Mike's character is laying on the ground, he's unconscious, no one's going to know what happens to him, so there's nothing in the rules that says I can't steal all his stuff and lie to him about it. Well, no, there isn't. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't do that. But the player and the GMs are free to have a conversation outside the rules, a social conversation, and say, hey, that's not fun for us. The fact that your character keeps doing stuff like this makes this social activity unfun. And we're not going to try and fix it by telling you that there are rules and you have to make a willpower save in order to betray your friend, because that's trying to fix an out-of-game issue, player behavior, with an in-game mechanic, an ability test. And that's not the right approach. We are instead going to set the rules aside, ignore them entirely, and tell you not as a rules question, not that the game itself somehow prevents you from being an ass, but we, as the people who are socializing with you, are not willing to do that if you are an ass, so don't do it. We have a social contract. It's just got mentioned. We have a social contract. It may or may not be specific, and some people need it to be specific, and some people prefer it not to be. And I'm, again, not here to get into that, at least on this show. But don't let the lack of a rule saying players should not go out of their way to make other players miserable. The fact that that is not in the game doesn't mean that you all can't decide it, and in fact should decide, hey, we're all here for us to all have fun, and that is a requirement of being here. I used to, when I was much younger and much less experienced, so I'll forgive myself a little bit, I used to figure that as game master, my job was to be a fair referee, interpreting between player decisions and the game universe, and the rules were my best tool for doing that. And that meant that if one player decided, hey, I am going to pump gasoline into this person's car through the window while they're taking a nap because I hate their character, and I'm going to light it on fire, and I'm going to walk away laughing to myself, and no one can stop me because I've got too good a stealth check. It used to be that I'd go, well, I wouldn't count on players doing you any favors, but you're right, the rules won't stop you. And we obviously can't have people taking actions against you who are not in character because their characters don't know. And so I would, by siding with the person that wanted to be a griefer, because that's what I consider this, I consider real life griefing and trolling, I was saying this is an environment where that is acceptable. And I regret that that was ever the way I played this game. And I am talking about, 30 years ago and more. I have come to a place where I will, if it is a group of people I know well, I'll make sure they know, and then we don't have to hammer on it. But if it's new players, I will explicitly say, if you are sitting at this table playing a game I am running, then part of what I require of you is that you agree that you are here to help everyone have fun with this game. That is part of what we agree to by doing this.
Oh, I like that. I like that. That by sitting around this table or engaging in this, whether it's digital or otherwise, that your attendance means you agree to be a part of what makes this work for everybody at the table.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think those things are important. I think that is how you make it clear that it is important for the game aspect to not just be rules, but to be, this is a fun social activity. So anytime the rules look like they are going to slow down the game and therefore impact fun, or if they are enforcing a concept or reality you find odious, or if they are being abused, or the lack of a rule saying that you can't do something is being held up as an example of why I should get away with this terrible behavior, just say no, ignore what the rule book says, and act like good and decent human beings at that point.
I dig it. Yeah. And that by joining that table, by being a part of that, everybody at the table understands what the rules are, and the GM is that person is the person making those calls. I think that's an important thing. And so this opens up a lot of interesting questions. We do talk a lot about responsibility and social responsibility and all of that. And I think that's an important piece of this. Are there other times that where do you, if someone wants to, sort of not deal with rules or whatever, that is kind of more of a behavior issue than anything else. Are there game mechanic times that suspending rules would be appropriate?
Yeah, I think there are.
No, you're frozen again.
Am I?
Yeah.
I look normal to myself.
Folks, I mean, we can hear you though, and that's fine.
Okay. All right, good. No, sorry, folks. As I said, there are thunderstorms rolling through. Connectivity is iffy. I've been kicked off a couple times, but we're here. We're making it work. Just, don't stare at any of my pores while my face is frozen. Let's
you do look like you might be actively being electrocuted.
Well, that's just a normal look for me.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
When I wake up in the morning, my hair tends to stick straight up.
Same.
So I was going to get to a point, and Stephen Jones just hit it. Roles shouldn't be required if you need the PCs to get a certain piece of info. A well-designed game or adventure does not stop in an unsatisfying fashion because someone blew a die roll. Now, that does not mean that you have to allow everything to be success all the time. It just means that there needs to be alternatives, even if those alternatives have consequences. So, as an example, I have been in games, again, many of which were 30 or more years ago, where if you failed to pick a lock to get into the dungeon, which is where all the action's happening, right? You're in the second encounter. You've killed the stone guardians that protected the dungeon, and now you got to pick the lock to get in. And the GM has clearly set things up because they want to make sure that the lock picking is important, that it's a challenge, that if you don't pick the lock, you cannot get in. And so if our thief tries to pick the lock 5 or 6 times and can't do it, those characters are going to shrug and go home. They don't really have a choice. The whole adventure has stopped. Or if the adventure is supposed to be, hey, there's something mysterious going out into the woods, and you wander around and you find absolutely no clues that there's anything mysterious, and go, oh, well, I guess that's just a rumor and it's not true, and leave, again, you have allowed failed die rolls to stop the game. Now, failed die rolls can have consequences, sure, right? If you don't pick the lock, and you decide you're going to smash it open by cutting down a tree log and ramming it, and the GM's like, yeah, that'll take a few hours, but you can do it. There are at least 2 consequences, first of which is that it delays things for a while and people are tired. So if there are other guardians or dangerous monsters in the ants area, they can perhaps find you. The other is that if there are things that can make plans sitting inside that dungeon, they're going to hear you beating the heck out of it with a giant log. Yeah, lockpicking, the 2 most famous, or I guess the 3 most famous examples for this are lockpicking, something that you cannot get open any other way, which, I understand that there are games that have spells that make it easy to bypass lock picking, and as a game master, you want lock picking to be important. Just think about the consequences of failed checks. If you're doing things like saying, well, it's magic proof and it's battering ram proof, and if you can't pick a lock, even though you're 3rd level characters, there's no way to ever get in. The other examples that are common are I didn't find the thing, a search check, right? Be it a secret door, or the important clue on who is in fact the Cthulhian cultist here on the Orient Express. And then there is, I did not properly find the research or discover the mystery or whatever to begin with. So we're wandering around and we have been told that there is a evil cult. In this cult, they all put a rune on the bottom of their foot, and that's how you know that they're a cultist. And so we've discovered, okay, there must be some specific way to look into that. Let's go look around and see if we can find the footprints of someone that has a weird footprint. And we all blew our roll and we found nothing, and that person's left town, so there's no other way we can find it. And because of that one failed check, the entire adventure comes to a halt. Dang, Perot is more intense than I remember. I think Perot versus Cthulhu is just waiting to happen. That's mustache versus tentacle is absolutely a thing I at least would do. Although
mustache versus tentacle.
Yeah, totally. That's Peru against Cthulhu.
So great. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
So those are all cases where you might, within the rules, have created a situation where players just can't move forward with the adventure. And you don't have to say, okay, no, you succeeded. But you do have to look at modifying those consequences so the game can go on, because anything that leads the game to just plain stop is probably bad. Now, a lot of people who are listening to this will immediately be thinking, well, what about the total party kill? What if you have done a thing so dangerous, or the players have rolled so badly, or everything has gone so far south that everyone dies? Different people like to handle things like TPKs differently. I have been in a group where we had a TPK. We went around and nodded at each other and went, okay, those characters are all dead. We will now make characters who knew those characters and are dedicated to avenging their death. So the game got to go on, but the TPK was still the TPK. Those characters were gone. I have also had characters. In fact, when I ran my very, very first 3.0 D&D game in 2000 at Wizards of the Coast, I decided to throw a pack of wolves at the player because I played once with Gary Gygax at a Gen Con, and it involved a pack of wolves, and I was trying, as an homage, I didn't even tell anyone that it would be a pack of wolves, and it turns out that 3.0 D&D wolves are way more dangerous than I expected, and as a result, I killed the entire party.
Wow.
First time I'm running the game, first encounter, first time playing the game for everyone there, and I killed everybody. And so I then had them all wake up with horror and discover that they have fallen asleep because the wood that they were burning for their campfire was in fact a hallucinogenic that also would give you precognitive dreams, and they all just dreamed about what would have happened if the wolves had found them that night, but they didn't. But if they didn't set watches, they would in the future. Now, none of that was stuff I had planned in advance, and I was very upfront with the players, right? I said, hey, I have made a mistake. I did something wrong. I absolutely did not mean to kill everyone. I would like to go forward, but since, people had said things between each other and made decisions and sacrificed themselves to save their friends, I didn't want to say none of that happened, because that was good, fun role-playing and character development. But by having it be a dream sequence, which is normally sort of a BS way out of a problem, which is why I was upfront with the players, all their characters knew what they had decided and what they did and how they'd reacted, so they could build off those burgeoning relationships. And I just said as the GM, oops, my bad. I did something wrong. You're all dead. When I was playtesting some new rules for the Fantasy Age core rulebook, I had friends around my table, and we all had them all make first level characters, and I ran an adventure, and I was running something that was supposed to be available for first through fourth level characters. Well, I did not carefully think about the fact that brand new players with brand new characters who have never run this system before are probably not the group of first level characters that can handle a first through fourth level encounter. And I had a TPK. And again, in that case, I turned to the players. I said, okay, this is a playtest. I am trying to turn this playtest into a campaign so you can have fun. We're just going to say that, in fact, there at the very end, just before the last one of you died, you managed to kill the last bad guy, and a few hours later, you all woke up bloody and wounded, but we're going to go on. So I just undid it. I was, in that case, literally breaking the rules of the game. I was deciding, hey, we're not going to have the game work the way that the rules say you do, because I don't like that result as a social activity amongst us, the players, and that is significantly more important to me than trying to have.
Oh, looks like we lost Owen. He's in the midst of a thunderstorm, and his stuff is blinking in and out. But which is really more unfortunate, because I have been making some artwork for Owen. I like to decorate him with stuff like this.
Yeah, see, again, that's
There we go.
hold it. Let me harder than it looks.
You're there. I think you might tilt your head the other way. There we go. I like it. Tentacle stash. Nice. Very nice. Glad you're back on. I was just explaining that you were in the midst of doing some thunderstorm watch, and but you're back, so it's all good.
And it looks like you guys could. I'm not frozen again, so I guess logging in seems to fix that problem.
It's not quite as fun for me because you kind of move around a little bit. I like it. I mean,
I got an arm tattoo more than anything.
It does, yeah, it does kind of done that. I'll be honest, though, and I will say that I know it's the last day of the month for September, but I'm already in October. I'm already thinking of Halloween.
I mean, my birthday is on the 28th of October. October has always been one of my very favorite months. A fair chunk of that, I'm sure, is because when I was really, really, really young, I could remember my birthday was in October. So when we said it is October, I knew, hey, I don't know how many days it is, but this month is my birthday. But also, I'm a weirdo. I like costumes. I like candy. If you like costumes and candy and birthday parties, and your birthday is in October, it's a good month.
You're only missing Christmas.
I live in Oklahoma, and it is too hot in August and September. So October was also the opportunity to go outside for the first time in 3 months.
Right, and not feel like you're gonna kind of evaporate. A question I have for you, very important one. Do you have any thoughts on? Are you going to dress up? Are you going to do a thing this Halloween or?
So I'm literally going to be waiting to see what the COVID situation is before I decide if we're dressing up or anything. I like to decorate and build a animatronic goblet out of bits and bobs and hang it from the front porch and pass out full-size candy bars to kids. But last year, the COVID situation in Oklahoma was horrible come Thanksgiving, and I've got an immunocompromised housemate, so we just decided we couldn't risk it, and we put out a bowl of candy in case kids came by so they wouldn't be too disappointed, but we turned off the lights to try and reduce the number of kids that would come by. And we're not in a high kid volume area. We're too close to the university for that. So this year, I don't know. Usually these days what happens is I have a birthday party, we watch a Gerard Butler movie, and then some horror films, and we call it good.
Did you say Gerard Depardieu movie?
No, Gerard Butler.
Oh,
One
Butler.
of my birthday traditions is to watch a Gerard Butler movie.
I don't know who that is, but I do know that you're a big fan of Gerard Depardieu. I know, I'm kidding. I haven't thought about him since the 80s.
He's still around. He did a wonderful Three Musketeers character.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, not an actor I really was overly impressed with. Not for any other reason than just more of a Depardieu for me. But so let's jump back into the topic. We've got good. We've got some time. When we were diving into this, we were talking about we talk a lot about, when it comes to breaking the rules, making it, you are a curator of a good experience for everyone around the table, including yourself. It should being a GM should be such a painful slog that when you're doing it, you just are crying inside or out. That's all of those things are pretty, it makes common sense, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because oftentimes, I have found myself many times in the world in a situation where something that is common sense, that common sense solution didn't strike me until I was able to look back in hindsight and go, yeah, maybe, I should have not done that thing or seen it coming and all of that. How do you start to hone your skills so that you can get ahead of these rule-breaking moments? What was that?
Thunder.
Wow, it sounded like someone was pouring a bunch of gravel over top your home. But how do people get it? How do GMs get into that space where they, sort of the that zone where they can kind of see it coming? And that's a hard thing to develop. It's experience that gives you that, right?
It is in a lot of ways. It's a hard thing to find a substitute for doing it until you're good at it. One substitute is to not try and hide what's going on behind a GM screen at first. And I'm going to give it an analogy because a lot of people don't grok what I'm saying when I come at this the first time. When I'm trying to teach someone a card game, once I've explained the rules to them and they've got the rules in front of them or play aids or whatever we have, I will frequently want to play a hand or two with everyone's cards up. So that they can see, hey, this is what's in my hand, and we can discuss that's why I'm playing this. This rule impacts that, and we can say, you can play that, but this might be a better idea. So if you are a new GM, I frequently like to suggest you try running some games, cards up, in which you tell people, hey, I thought it would be fun if we had a fight near a waterfall, and so no one could talk to each other. And so because I thought that might be fun, the trail of the bloodthirsty monster that you've been following happens to go through here, and it's going to jump out of the waterfall and attack you, and let's see how that goes. And then after the game, you can ask them, did you have fun with that? What did you think worked? What did you think didn't work? And where would you like us to take it from there? And you can just, instead of depending on, I have an instinct for these things, I have 35 years of experience that allows me, you can just say, hey, what do you guys want to do? Because it's not fair to expect a game master to be a master of the art off the get-go. And you're already doing one of the harder things, right? The role of game master is often more difficult than the role for other players. So I am a big fan of sitting down and saying, I want to run a game. I'm not necessarily real good at it yet. I'm going to be talking to you a lot out of character. If we make mistakes, I intend to retcon it. And that's sort of that session zero stuff, which we've talked about before. But just be upfront with people that there may need to be some hand holding and asking the group what they think. And even if you're experienced, that can be a good idea. I recently ran a fight in my Really Wild West game, which I may have mentioned on the show, where the fight was on a bunch of clockwork cogs. And so I had some styrofoam cake rounds with gaming paper on top of them, and I just spun them every round, which meant all the characters were constantly being rotated, and what was in your line of sight changed, and what could you charge? And there was the question of, do I take damage from the gears? When we were done with that, I told players, for me as a game master, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It came off just exactly the way I wanted it to. Did you all have a good time? And one of the players mentioned to me, and he's quite right, that his character didn't end up on the gears until the very, very end of the fight. And that's because tactically that was the smart decision for him. Totally was. I absolutely get it. But that also means that sort of the fun interactive part of that encounter wasn't something he got to engage in. Now, that's not a complaint, right? I asked people, hey, give me feedback. How'd that work for you? And his reaction was, I see that a lot of people were having fun. I had a good time, but it was really just a normal fight for me because I was a ranged sniper. That was obviously dangerous and difficult, so I stayed away from it for as long as I could. And as a result, I didn't get to interact with those fun pieces.
Interesting.
That is how, as a game master, I can learn, I didn't think in those terms, right? I was very carefully trying to make sure that I didn't force everyone into this dangerous circumstance, but that means that there's a toy that realistically this player felt his character shouldn't be playing with. And that's just, even with 35, nearly 40 years experience, I just don't get that right always.
Right.
You can do that at the beginning too, right? You can say, hey, instead of throwing 4 goblins all at once, I decided to have 2 goblins attack you and 2 attack you later. What'd you think of it? And people can go, well, and the goblins were fine, except we overheard them talking about how they were bringing food back to their children, and then you had us kill them, and we didn't have a choice, and now we feel bad. And you're like, oh, I was talking about the timing of things, and you're talking about the socioeconomic status of goblins in my campaign. I see that we are concerned with different things here. And then you can even say, how do you want to handle that? Should I assume that we're going to treat goblins as people because they look like people and talk like people, which in general is the approach I myself try and take now these days? And we have to at least give lip service to the concept of why are we being asked to kill them, right? Like, if there are people that are opposed to the most ethical and moral of self-defense violence, if you're not going to have fun because you're getting bogged down in that, you can say, okay, instead we're doing a campaign where a bunch of automatons have been awoken from their ancient sleep and are wandering around trying to kill things, and they just happen to have the same stats of all the monsters I've got in the bestiary. And then, you've had that conversation, and then everything looks like it's something out of Laputa or something, right? The weird ancient monster that is actually a clockwork mechanism that just has a gear in back that's telling it whether or not it should shoot fire at you. Jumps you, and you can go with everything else. But you can't get those elements unless you're talking to your players. And I think it is best the less experience you have in general, and the less experience you have with a specific group, the more you should talk to them, especially if you're going for an ongoing experience. It's a little different if you're doing a one-off, right? If you're Michael said, just slap the technological subtype on it. And we don't really do types and subtypes in Fantasy Age, and for good reason, but you could totally. It's a little different if you're doing a one-shot type thing, and you're not going to play with these people again. You're running a game at a convention, and it's a pre-written game and whatever. But even then, you can talk to them about your expectations and your experiences up front. And if it's a 4-hour slot, by all means, every hour say, hey, does everyone need to get up and stretch? Does anyone need a bio break? Is everyone having fun? And you can do that kind of check-in. I am currently mostly gaming with people I have gamed with for more than 30 years. And even now, that occasional stop, check, how are people feeling? One of our players is trying to play a genius clockwork engineer, mechanic, scientist type character. And we've sort of been treating them as if they were dumb. And that makes that character less fun for them. And the character's just enthusiastic, but that's different from being stupid. And we need to think, as other players, I'm a player in that game, how is our characterization of that character impacting what that character feels like to that player? And the same can be true, how do the NPCs treat them? Are they getting calls as respected scientists to go give talks somewhere. There are lots of different solutions, but the point is those issues come up even with people that I've been playing with for longer than some people I know have been alive. We still occasionally don't get everything right. So I guess the second part of that, and this is also part of knowing when to ignore the rules, is take your best shot, apologize if it goes badly. Hopefully you will all laugh at the goofy stuff too, and then just move on. You can't ruin your car by deciding to throw the wrong dice, right? Fantasy Age will not work well if you decide that everyone's going to roll 1d12 and 1d6, and you still need doubles in order to get stunt points. But you could do it. It won't cause anyone to go blind.
But the payoff, yeah.
Make whatever changes seem fun to you. If you think the D12 is the most underused die and you've just got a bunch of pretty ones and you want to throw it out there, go for it. Give it a try. And maybe you'll like something that someone else would have told you would have been a bad idea.
Yeah, and I love that experimental stuff, but I do think it's an interrogation of your motives as a GM when you're coordinating these. There is something a little, I don't know what the word is, but I'll use gross when you are creating a situation. Here you fighting X monster, and I did it like this and I did it like that, and then they say, oh, but you made us like they weren't hostile, and we were forced into a situation to kill them, and they had children, and it's like, why would you do that to us? That's important, but one of the things that's interesting, Owen, you dash off some of these notions, and I'm picking up on your shorthand just because you were talking about people they're giving you feedback and that's okay, and you kind of moving through it. It's very interesting. I think that one of the best things that anybody who is living life, but in the context of playing, if you're a GM, if you can get good at receiving and digesting feedback in a very open way, in a very authentic way, it is remarkable what it does to the tone and the tenor of your relationship with that person.
It also plays very strongly, and one of the advantages that tabletop role-playing games have over any computerized electronic board game, any of those other experiences, and that is that it is easily open to fine-tuning by social agreement.
Right.
If I want to play World of Warcraft and I don't want to kill wolves for their wolf pelts, there's a whole slew of encounters I just can't do. And there's no option to press a button and say, hey, I don't want these to be wolves with wolf pass. Make them capitalists that are stealing money from the bourgeois, from the proletariat. Now I'm happy killing them in a fantasy environment.
Right.
That's not an option. But if you've got a game master and he's like, hey, it's a huge menagerie hunt and you get bonus points for every different herbivore that has no threat to everyone you kill. And you're like, you know what? I realize these aren't real animals, but this idea just doesn't strike me right. And contemplating it isn't fun. Can we do something else? And you've got that option to just take that feedback. And you can change everything. You can retroactively change things. You can alter the mechanics, the speed, the tone, the length of time you play, the number of players, the expectation of how a game will go. Those are all available dials that you can all just agree to change without having to have any programming or art resources or
money,
right? Yeah, no, totally. You can just say, hey, we've decided. And that's all house rules are too, right? Like if you've been going through the rules and you're like, hey, I noticed that the only spear that does decent damage is a two-handed spear. So what's the spear supposed to look like? Because I wanted to be a Greek hoplite with a big spear and a shield, most dangerous warrior in existence of my era. And the GM can just go, oh, that's a really good point. All right, just use a two-handed spear one-handed because you're a hoplite. On we go. And that won't break Fantasy Age, especially. It won't break most games. And if it does break something, what it's broken is how things are balanced against each other. And if you and the players don't care, then don't worry about it. There are a lot of games that don't care about balance. What they care about is like spotlight time. And that's a different metric. B, if people do care, especially if it's people that care a lot for whatever reason that it impacts their fun, make another change, right? Okay, you can use your two-handed spear one-handed, but you'll be -1 to your attacks because it's harder to use that way. Or you can put it through the loop in your shield, and then you're not -1 to attack, but your shield doesn't give you as much armor value, and done. And people are sometimes afraid to make house rules to change the things they don't like because they don't know how we came up with those numbers to begin with. And I get that. You can always make a small change, run it by everyone in the group, and if everyone goes, yeah, that seems reasonable, give it a try. That is, no matter what math and expectations and expertise and years of experience game designers have, I have never run a play test where we did not discover that something was too effective and something was not effective enough.
Right.
And no matter how much we had thought that we had done the professional work of game design, it needed to be adjusted. So all you're doing is coming up with a new rule and play testing it. Feel free. And that is another great way to customize these games, right? If you think it is too boring that everyone takes all their actions in one turn and your whole group decides, okay, you got to take your major action and everyone does their major, and then you'll take your minor action and everyone the game will go more slowly. But if that's more fun for you, go for it.
I love it. Ren had asked a really great question, but we are swiftly running out of time. I'm wondering, we keep talking about, we've talked a lot about house rules. We've talked a lot about engagement. We've talked a lot about, just in the run of ThursdAGE. Do you think that devoting an entire show to the discussion and sort of the sharing of house rules would be an interesting discussion?
I do. Actually, I think that would be a great show, honestly. And we touched a little bit on that because altering rules and house rules is a form of ignoring or breaking the rules. But I do think it deserves its own space to be discussed.
I like that. Yeah, we'll definitely do that, and Ren, will incorporate your question into that.
Yeah,
I think
and it is a a question. So
yeah, fantastic. The other thing I want to say too is, it strikes me that in a world where we are largely in a world where we are contended with as part of an aggregate. The median, it's why all of the tech companies have made it so incredibly difficult to connect with a human, it is very rare, is exceedingly more rare, where we get an opportunity to have something tailored to fit and have a moment to engage in a way that is so instantly rewarding, and the opportunity to feel like, okay, I'm heard. I get to do some stuff, and then I also understand why maybe my idea didn't work. Like in this negotiation stuff, no matter where you land on the win or lose or whatever, it's the coming through a negotiation with another human being in a positive, fun way. Tabletop roleplay is a very unique opportunity to do that stuff, to be seen, to impact something, and then just to have some fast fun and get through it. I love that. Jonesy has a request for a topic: how to run a slasher movie type game.
That very much sounds like a mode of play for modern age. So we might have to move out of fantasy age for that discussion.
Maybe we do that. There is maybe we talk about let's do some theming. We both love Halloween, and we can. Yeah, I love it. All right, that's great, Jonesy. Thank you for the suggestion. It is 1 minute before we are done. I want to not taunt the God of Thunder any more than we already have. Owen, anything you want to?
Thor loser.
I love it. Is there anything that you want to share? Anything that you've done? Anything that we should know about?
So, on OwenKCStevens.com, I have been very specifically hammering an upcoming project called Shadowfinder, which is going to be Starfinder compatible and using Paizo's Starfinder Infinite program. So I don't want to take up too much time here on ThursdAGE, the Green Ronin channel, talking about it. But if you want to go over to my website, it's just OwenKCStevens.com. Several of the most recent articles discuss it.
Fantastic. Go check that out. We will be returning Monday for Mutants and Masterminds Monday with Crystal Fraser, Steve Kenson, and myself. Also, Alex Thomas joins us every once in a while. We love to talk about heroes and like to talk about them with you. And thank you Yeah, you're welcome, Ren. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chris. All as per usual, great feedback from everybody. Truly appreciated. We definitely 100%. Like, I mean, I just come away from ThursdAGE, feeling a little lighter, and it's nice. And Owen, a tribute to you and your character. You're good. You're a good bean. A good king bean. I like your crown. Doot, 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 doot. Owen, we'll see you next week, and be safe. Don't get too thunderized.
Yeah, I'll stay inside. I'll be fine.
All right. Bye, everybody.